Welcome to Scandinavian MIND Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more, from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, Einride launches a new autonomous trailer at their big event Mesh Conference. We were there and will report. We'll also talk about our report on the fashion education system's digital makeover. And later in the program, we are joined by our special guest, Saina Koohnavard, lecturer at Swedish School of Textiles. I'm Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm joined by Erik Sedin, our junior editor, and our contributing editor, Oliver Dahle. Guys, you're going to have to carry this episode. My voice is not with me today. How are you guys?
I'm good. I can't speak for Oliver, but I'm perfect. It's quite cozy. I feel like a nice Friday morning vibes with your raspy voice.
Yeah, totally agree, and everything's fine with me as well.
Oliver, welcome to Stockholm. Usually you report from Florence, Italy, where you live, but you just arrived in Stockholm.
Exactly.
Lovely spring, rainy weather here.
Exactly. I came from 32 degrees Florence, summer weather, more or less. And today it's, I think, around 10 degrees and pouring rain in Stockholm. So, yeah, quite a difference.
Yeah, sorry about that. And I have a bit of a cold, but I also attended the Cafe Magazine party last night celebrating the 50 best dressed men in Sweden. So just had to put that in there. Yes.
What spot did you get on that list? Do you know the exact spot? Top 10?
I had the honorary spot of 38.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, obviously it's great fun to be on the list. Just wanted to throw that out there. People act like they don't care. I'm old enough to admit it's good fun to be on the list, even though I'm not a cool actor or musician like some of the guys on the top of the list. Anyways, we have a lot to talk about today. Erik, you came back from Gothenburg yesterday, where you attended the Mesh Conference hosted by a Swedish autonomous electric vehicle company, Einride, where they had big news. I'm super excited to hear what happened down there. I've only seen a few things on social. Give us the headlines to begin with.
So yeah, Einride, for people that don't know, Swedish autonomous freighting company. So they make trucks that are completely electric and completely autonomous. And they've been around now for, I think they originally started 6 years ago. And us at Scandinavian Mind, me personally, been writing about them for a while now. And it was for me actually really nice to actually see their first pod that they introduced a couple of years ago. Actually to see it in person, because I've been seeing all these mock-ups. I've been reading about it for a couple of years now. I've been interviewing their founder, Robert Falk, and the other co-founder, Saina Koohnavard. So it's nice to actually see the truck there in space, in person. But yeah, so they had this huge tech launch event, with everything, with the lasers. They had the house music, and when someone walked up on stage, they did that little awkward dance that we get to know. Perfect tech event.
Always the lasers.
And it was great. They spared no expenses, like they say in Jurassic Park. And the big news for us and for me was that they launched the big Einride trailer. So earlier, like I said, they have the pod, which is kind of like looks like a van, size-wise at least. But now this is like a full-on truck, like a freight truck that you would see. That's like, I don't know how to explain it, like 6 cars long, and like they said on the on stage and in the press release that they sent out, that it's going to be built and it's going in production next year. Like these tech companies usually say next year, it's gonna come next year. We'll see about that. It looked very nice, and they did though show the huge 360 kWh. I don't know how to say that in tech terms, but it could be kilowatt hours or whatever.
Yes.
So a Tesla car, like a regular electric car, would be 50. So it's 360, almost 7 times as much. And this would give a range of 650 kilometers for a big truck, though. So it's pretty impressive. And still, it's not there yet, but they launched it, and it was pretty cool to see. And overall, a great show and a great conference. They had this electrical mobility panel, which I think they just read all the previous Scandinavian Mind magazine and cherry picked all the people we've been writing about. Because I was watching that stage and I was like, I interviewed her, I interviewed him, I lifted him before, and we know about him and her. So a great event.
It was Heart
in general.
Aerospace, Cake, Ride Cake.
Yeah, and X-Shore. We've done all big stuff on these, and also Mimbly, which is this KTH initiative from Isabella Palmgren. They started like really getting into microplastics these days because it's all over the news, and I'm getting terrified of it's in our blood and it's in our lungs and stuff. But she almost 5 years ago started talking about this, and she developed a washing machine for clothes, a laundry machine that the water is just reused with a filter, so it uses less water and it filters away the microplastics from the clothes. So she was there too. I've spoken to her a couple of years ago. So a great event in general, and really cool to actually see what Einride is doing. Impressive.
And when they launched the trailer, what was some of the sort of innovations that made this happen? Why is this happening right now? I'm sure there are sort of technical hurdles. This huge battery need to be in place in order to be able to put this on the road. This is an enormous thing. This gigantic kind of iPod-looking trailer truck is going to go on the roads. What was the thinking around it?
They were talking about how on stage, when they had, in general, they were talking with this electric mobility panel about how they think from the EU, from like this, there will be these regulations about electrical freight now. Yeah. People will it could be, and that could be the real change. Some of them were talking about in Norway, they're welcomed with open arms, and Norway kind of like, hey, we want to do electric planes, go on. You want to do electric freight, go on. We'll help you. We'll sort you out with subventions and stuff. So they were talking about like jumping on. I guess it was kind of for investors too, but they were kind of like jump on now because, getting stuff from A to B has just been the same for so many years now. So let's get it autonomous first of all, and let's get it electrical, because these regulations will come into place, which I thought was quite interesting.
And did you say anything about the challenges that needs to be sort of overcome in order to put this on the road? As you say, many of these vehicles are always launched, a year or two, or in the case of, I think, the Tesla Cybertruck is still like a couple of years away, always postponing it. Why is it taking so long to get these things on the road?
Yeah, and this is also because they're completely autonomous. There is no, they don't even have a cabin or a driver. They don't even have a wheel or a driver's seat. Yeah. It's just a big pod. It's just a big square iPod on wheels, like you said. So, and that takes a lot of, of course we can talk about, it's autonomous and we can save money. We don't need truck drivers. But I think we're quite far from getting them on the roads, going to a port, going to an airport, and there's no one there to, drive it, and then getting it across the country to another place. So even though they were talking about regulations might help them, they were also saying that the regulations, at least in Sweden with autonomous driving and stuff, is quite slow. Getting these things on the road and safety and everything, they have to be safe, first of all, before they're sent out there. And they were talking about, now they're starting to test out, if there's fog, if there's ice, if there's rain, how are these trucks going to manage that? How do they manage, there's a reindeer herd coming across the road? How are they going to learn to take new paths and stuff?
Yeah, some work to be done there. Anything else to report from this event in terms of what happened, or speakers that you want to bring with you in your reporting? Obviously, we haven't been able to write the article yet, put it up online, but it'll come in next week perhaps. But anything else you want to say?
Great event. I would love to go on more tech events for anyone listening. I thought Einride, they had a party the night before, which was kind of interesting to have the party before the conference. I don't know if people fell off there and not getting up in the morning, but so they had this big DJ with a big computer behind him, and he was pulling all these cords and stuff, and it was cool. I loved it. My cup of tea.
Wonderful. Okay, so more tech events and tech parties for Erik Sedin in the future. Shout out to anyone listening. Perhaps some of these other companies, Heart Aerospace, I'm assuming, is planning their launch event when once they are ready to put their electric aeroplane on the market. We'll definitely dive into that. All right, moving on. Of course, we have Oliver Dahle, our editor-at-large from Florence, Italy, now present in Stockholm, with us here to talk about his two-part report on the fashion education system and their digital makeover. We touched on this briefly a couple of episodes ago, and now we're happy to have the author himself here with us. Oliver, can you just give us the headlines about this report? Why are we doing this?
Yes, sure. So my initial idea or like thought about this was, as you all may know, there is this big shift within fashion, or like this tech wave with NFTs, virtual worlds, and crypto, and everything related to this.
Mm.
And looking at this, I had this thought like, oh, is this like a marketing trick, like a one trick pony? This will happen, and then in 5 years it will all be over. And how can we like see if this will stay in the long run? And that's when I got the idea, like, okay, let's look at the fashion education. How are they training their students, designers to be, upcoming creative directors, maybe marketing people, etc. All the roles that is going to be the future fashion industry. How are they trained in the digital sphere? So yeah, that was like the initial idea. And like doing this piece, talking with all the like directors, lecturers, teachers, everyone, it really goes many ways. The piece is really touching upon like subjects such as identity, what is fashion really, technical stuff like traditional technicalities like weaving, sewing, knitting, all these kind of things, but also how you will do this in your computer. So yeah, I think it's very interesting, and everyone I talked to had some really interesting insights, and it really is a top subject that is on everyone's mind in one sense or another.
It was super fascinating, and we touched upon when you launched the first part of the report. We had the Swedish School of Textiles. We'll get back to that. We have a guest from there. It was via University College in Denmark, Royal College of Art in London, and now we have another batch of schools we have interviewed, launched on the website this week. Aalto University in Finland. We also have the University of Art Linz in Austria, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and just when doing this, reporting, talking to these people, what were some of the surprises from your end? What's the things that you or revelations that you realized when doing this?
My biggest surprise, I think, is that this is a very big topic for everyone in one sense or another, because I was thinking that there would be a bigger divide among the schools. Like, let's say we are doing it and we don't. But
Right.
everyone is either they're quite far in doing it, or they're like taking their initial steps. So it's happening in all the places in one way or another. And this could be because you would like to work more sustainably, because you don't really have to do that much of sampling and waste fabrics, etc., and all these kind of stuff. Or you could do like pure digital fashion, like avatars, skins, and even create the avatar, not the garments itself, but the thing in the game or whatever.
The
Like
little man, the little woman, the little figure.
the identity, the thing. So yeah, so I think that was what surprised me the most. Like, this is happening, guys. It's like we're going there, and everyone is doing it.
Yeah, I love that, and there's a reason to be optimistic about the sort of awareness on the topic from everyone is really what you're saying. And we touched upon the fact that this is also driven both by the students, that they are, we're seeing this in our reporting as well, that from the sort of grassroots creator economy, people are really wanting to design fashion and avatars and so forth for these digital worlds. But also it's from the industry, right? There's a request from the industry for the fashion education system to actually educate people on these topics.
Yes, definitely. And I spoke to Massimiliano Giornetti, who is the director of Polymoda in Florence, which also is a school which I am an alumni of. Shout out. And Polymoda is working a lot with brand partnerships, and like they have mentors from all over the industry, collaborating with like the biggest brands and conglomerates from the luxury and fashion world. So they're very much like entangled into the industry, and like they want their alumni to be taking part and like learn what's needed in fashion. And what he told me is like this is a huge request now from the fashion industry.
Right.
They want to have interns that knows how to do an NFT, how to like design digitally, and like he had meetings with like the major fashion companies in Italy and Europe, and they really want to like have students that know these things, that really know how to create digital pieces and also get them out there. And as you can see, like Gucci have been doing this now for a while. OTB, the Only the Brave, the Diesel group with Marni, Gilsander, Maison Margiela, they have started their like digital fashion house brand thing. So it's really like happening in many places, and so I really, and you know this as well, like it's very hard to know where it's going. It's a new field, so it's very much up to like create this, and no one really knows this. And this is also one thing, I think it's in the piece as well, but the teachers didn't know how to teach these things. Like 2-3 years ago, this thing happened, started to happening, and then the pandemic came, and then it was like, okay, now we really have to go over to digital. But no teacher could teach it. So yeah, the thing is very much happening, but it's up to everyone to create it.
We're going to continue on this topic in a moment with our guest, Saina Koohnavard, but just brass tacks here. Which school are the farthest ahead? Who's the best on this, and who's lagging most behind? Just from your take.
Honestly, I don't think that's up for me to decide, and that you could do this in such many ways. And I think it's up to everyone to read the piece and create their own opinion about it, because I think you can't really compare Swedish School of Textiles with the Royal Academy in Antwerp or Parsons or Esmod. They're all doing this in such different ways. So I don't really want to pick a winner here, because I think there might be a winner in everyone in one way or another.
Yeah, well, so Oliver is a lecturer himself, working in this fashion school system. So very diplomatic answer, perhaps good. So, but it kind of goes to show then that there is not really a cohesive way of doing this. There's not a cohesive approach. They haven't sort of made up their minds about doing this in a similar fashion. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. As I said in the beginning, you could focus on doing real fashion, like physical garments, but create them digitally to be more sustainable and save transportation costs and materials and everything. Or you could do it like to create NFTs, virtual fashion, or whatever. And or you could just do sketches digitally. So yeah, many ways to do this. And
Yeah, we're going to stick on this topic with our upcoming guest. I just want to plug that this is also something we will be touching upon in our upcoming transformation conference happening in Helsinki at end of May and in Stockholm end of August. We'll get back to that, but I think the invites for the Helsinki event just went out the other day for anyone who subscribes to our newsletter. Oliver, thank you so much for doing this report. It's a really hefty assignment, and many interviews and many hours, I assume, going into this. And really, no, we're so happy to have you on board as a contributor. All right, we're going to continue on the topic of the fashion education system, and we are joined by Saina Koohnavard, lecturer at the Swedish School of Textiles. Saina, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, obviously we've been talking about Oliver Dahle's report here on the fashion educational system. Just from your perspective, why do you think digital fashion is important, or do you think is important, and what's your sort of headline to this topic?
Well, I mean, obviously I think it's important because I'm quite biased. I'm super interested in this area. Mm-hmm. It's important because this is sort of the technology is leading us in a way. We are going towards this direction. We're seeing a huge development taking place. But then again, it's extremely uncertain towards where this is going and the impact it will have in, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, or perhaps even 2 years. But I think it's important as an educator to prepare students for the different aspects that are going on in technology wise. I mean, we teach them a bunch of different techniques, and I see this as digital technology as an important tool to grasp as a student, at least nowadays. So as from an educator point of view, I see that the students have to know what this entails, at least a little bit, and then they can decide for themselves if they want to pursue a career within this particular pathway, or if they want to specialize in it even more. But to introduce them is key, I think.
And in the report that we've published, we see quite a lot of different approaches from the different fashion schools across Europe and the world. How would you describe the approach that you have at the Swedish School of Textiles when it comes to digital fashion and these new technologies?
Well, this approach is quite new. I would say that we implemented this back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And then a bunch of us who are researching this topic, PhD candidates and some of us who are in different types of research projects, we've been sort of dealing with this technology or parts of this technology for some years prior to that. But it was introduced to the Fashion BA curriculum in 2019, and same thing for the MA curriculum in fashion and textile design. And our approach here is basically, first of all, it was all about Clothes3D and to introduce them to that particular software. What is it? What can you do with it? Wow, look at this. This is a really great way of minimizing waste. I mean, that is the primary reason why I think a lot of companies and perhaps a lot of educational institutions use Clothes3D. But then as we went on, sort of, we quickly introduced them also to VR technology and to other extended reality technology, AR. And this is also because we have a PhD candidate researching this area. So naturally, the research sort of trickles down into undergraduate and graduate level. So, but yeah, the foundation is the approach is basically to give them a foundation in these various different types of software that exist. Same thing that we do with the different Adobe software that exists, and then introduce them to these different types of methods, and then they can select for themselves if this is something that they want to specialize in, if they want to do degree works within this area, or if they want to do different types of design projects within this area. So it's about introducing them more to the foundation, and so that the threshold of learning something new doesn't become as high if something else would to emerge, because it most surely will.
I was going to ask. I thought your questions and your answer in this series was really interesting and really good. But this one is kind of, maybe it's hard for you to answer. But of course, as a fashion education and a fashion school, you have the students on one side. They might be really into it. They may be like, "Oh, we want to do digital fashion, and this is the new thing." And then you might also hear from like these guest lecturers, and you might hear from the industry in general, like, "Hey, we need you guys to learn your students digital because that's when we need them later." Have you found that from both sides, that they're like both from the students and from the industry, that they're like, "Hey, let's get digital, like let's get going"?
Maybe from some parts of the industry, that voice is a little bit louder. I wouldn't say that particular approach is dominating. Now it is more that we have at the Swedish School of Textiles we have we have a program board, so we invite representatives from the industry to this board, and then we have meetings twice a year, and so now it's basically us asking the industry, so what are you looking for, what do you think about this development in digital technology that is taking place? How can we sort of prepare students the best way possible? How do you work with these tools? What is important to you, and so on and so forth. It's more from that perspective rather than the other way around. But I wouldn't be surprised if, in a couple of years, this discussion is going to be much more intensified, where the industry is actually going to more articulately ask for this type of competence. But we're not 100%, we're not there yet, I would say, because a lot of these companies are still learning to understand these types of tools and what they can do with them. I mean, if you think about these large companies such as H&M or Acne or whatever. I mean, it's quite new to the way of working, so it's not like everyone is 100% sure what type of digital competence they need, but they know they need it at some extent, but not exactly how much or.
Can I break in here? Because I think this like more laid back attitude towards this new phenomena is quite Scandinavian, I'd say, because both from Swedish School of Textiles, Aalto in Finland, but also VIA in Denmark, the digital tools is much more used to like sustainably source materials, reduce waste, and all these kind of things. Or at least that's what everyone is talking about, what is interesting about it. But talking to more international universities, it's much more like NFTs, virtual fashion. Let's go forward, jump into this. And so I think there's a difference in that sense, looking at it internationally versus Scandinavia.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've certainly talked about NFTs, but that's not something that we in our courses say that, okay guys, today we're going to sit down and we're going to create a bunch of NFTs to put out in the world. We don't do that. For us, it depends on what type of educational approach you have, to some extent, I guess. When we talk about digital technology, we're interested in the expressive output of that technology. So we want the students to explore the expressive potential in that. So it doesn't necessarily have to result in an end product. I would say that is the case in all of the different techniques. I mean, it could be weaving or knitting or sewing, printing, you name it. It's all about the expressive qualities. What can we do with this technique, how far can I push it? How can it be interpreted? What new methods can be found or introduced to the fashion design practice? So I think that is simplified our approach in terms of education. So I guess that maybe that can be interpreted as a more laid back, because it is we see it as a technique. We see it as a skill, and a skill that you can explore the expressive potential within.
And I think you said one thing very interesting in the interview, which was, I don't remember it exactly, but it was something like this, that this new digital phenomena is making us talk about the differences among brands, but also like education and like what is happening. Earlier, we haven't done this in the same way, but it always have existed. And I think in this piece, it's 9 educational institutions that have been interviewed. And I think there is 9 different point of view to this phenomena, more or less. Do you think, like, future-wise, that it will be more, let's say, streamlined, that everyone will work in the same way, or will it continue like this?
I mean, today we have, as I said also in the interview, I think I don't think it would be that different. I mean, today we have fashion education programs all over the world that specialize in different things, that have their own brand, or they have an approach to fashion. I mean, fashion design is a huge area. It's a huge area. I mean, some schools are more into trends, some schools are more into experimental methods, some more into commercial application. I think we're still going to see those differences. So I mean, I don't think that just because digital technology emerges, we're all going to work in the same way. Right now, the industry demands many different things. I mean, there are so many different brands with so many different approaches. Some, we see sustainability, zero waste, remake, reuse brands emerging more and more, but that doesn't mean that all of the fashion programs of the world are going towards that particular area. I think that this is just going to be one technique among several, or one skill set among several, that some may want to focus on more, whereas others might still want to teach or educate students in that more traditional way. So I don't think that this is going to change. I mean, who am I to say? I don't know. I might be wrong, but I honestly, I don't. It's a super tough question. It's a really good question. It's super tough, though.
Well, I think that goes to why we're kind of doing this report in the first place, just kind of survey what are the different approaches, what are the different perspectives, and it's really interesting to see the sort of diverseness of answers from the different schools, and we'll certainly continue to explore this in the Scandinavian Mind platform. I'm curious from your perspective, from a kind of student perspective, how would you describe the level of curiosity and excitement around some of these technologies? We've seen examples of students coming out from, I think, other schools. I'm not sure, from your schools, coming out with a fashion designer skill and started working at a gaming company, for instance. Like the skill of creating fashion becomes the skill of creating a skin for an avatar, for instance. From your perspective, down in Borås, what's the excitement level among the students, would you say?
I mean, first of all, I think that was great. I think it was Ung Svensk Forum that had part of their jury. They had Massive Entertainment come in, and so I was thrilled also because Massive has developed one of my all-time favorite games. So I was super excited that they were part of that jury.
That's great.
Yes. So I think that this skill set definitely shows that. I mean, those types of collections, that graduate collection that that student made, is one example of, showcasing two gaming companies that I mean, this is something that we could use, or this is a skill that we could implement. And I think that is absolutely wonderful, because it opens up a new pathway for fashion designers. And around that time, we had, I think that we had our course in digital technology among our first year BA students. And I remember that some of the students have asked me, so when will we have that course, Saina? Is that course coming up? I'm really excited about that course. Are we gonna do something towards? Are we gonna use game engines? Stuff like that. So I think many are super excited. But as many students, you're interested in different things. Not everyone is a gamer, perhaps, or is interested in that type of expression, because digital technology comes with a form of expression. And I think that sometimes that discussion is also a little bit missed, that there is a particular way of form thinking, or in digital technology that we see a lot.
Let me pick up on that, because I think it's interesting. We've had people talking in our platform, in our latest magazine, about the sort of perspective that we're going to see an emergence of a separate digital fashion industry, and that there's going to be a physical fashion industry working in the kind of more similar ways that we are working today. And the questions, of course, is going to be about supply chain and waste management, and how to limit the use of materials and so forth. Then there's going to be a emergence of a digital fashion industry working more in metaverse spaces, gaming, social media, virtual reality, and so forth. And obviously, what connects them is the design part and the identity part. But they're not connected in this. The end product is obviously completely different. One is physical and one is digital. If you want to speculate, would you agree to this sort of scenario of two different industries? Is that plausible, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's plausible. Now we have digital fashion companies. I mean, they are all over my feed, so I'm like, wow, they're everywhere. But obviously, they're in my feed. No, but we have them, and we have DressX, we have Fabricant, and we have Atakak, and I definitely think that it's going to be, sure, two camps, or whatever you want to call it. But a mix is also something that we've seen, that a lot of fashion companies explore different types of digital environments, just to test, just to connect with a different audience. I think that is taking place, and will surely take place more and more. But what is interesting is that a lot of the fashion that we see in these digital environments are basically copies of our physical world. So everything is like a digital twin of our physical world, when there are so many endless possibilities in that physical space. I mean, you can express whatever you want. You can dress however you want. You can, I can wear, I don't know, I can wear smoke if I want, or maybe that would be very difficult for an engine. But anyway, there are so many possibilities. So I think that now it's about the twins. What I think is going to be interesting is when we see examples that go a little bit further from that, step away from that a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's going to be two camps, but also a mix, the way we see it now. But who knows? It's
who knows, for sure. I think and every time we have these conversations, I feel like we're only at the beginning of the conversation itself, and we're only going to see in the course of the next just few months. It's going to be different. A few years, definitely more different. Perhaps next time we'll do this interview, it's going to be in a VR space. We're all going to be wearing smoke.
Would love that.
Saina Koohnavard, you're a lecturer at the Swedish School of Textiles in Borås. Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that was a great conversation with Saina Koohnavard, lecturer at the Swedish School of Textiles. As I said, I think this conversation can just go on forever, and we certainly did after stopped recording with her. Just kept talking. Anyways, this has been the Scandinavian Mind Weekly podcast. So happy to have Oliver Dahle with us this week. Come back soon. Erik Sedin, again, just to plug our transformation conference coming to Helsinki in a couple of weeks, May 31st. If you're in town, let us know. We can secure you a spot for that. It's limited seats, but I'm sure we'll make it happen. And that conference travels back to Sweden with some of the Swedish and Finnish fashion innovation companies at the end of August 25th to be exact, at during the Nordic Fabric Fair. So that will happen. If you want to learn more about this and about upcoming talks and events, sign up to our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. Guys, have a great weekend.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.